I wondered when y'all walked in, I was like. All right, we're going to be getting started here in just a minute. If everybody wants to take a seat. All I ask is that when your item is called, you come up to the podium, speak into the microphone because we are recording this and this is actively being live streamed on YouTube for those who are interested. And I'm going to turn this over to the chairman here in just a second when I'm done and let him call this to order. Thank you. Oh, I forgot to mention, please sign in and note which agenda item you're speaking on.
All right, I'd like to call to order the Thursday, April 25th meeting of the Town of Somerville Design Review Board. The first order of business is approval of the March meeting minutes. Is there someone that would like to make a motion for approval or amendment?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Peter, seconded by Bill. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. First item under business is Godwin Sign at 108 East 3rd North, also known as Coastal Coffee.
So this is the sign in question. As you can see, this is a sign located on a canopy. The UDO does have a stipulation that sign copy on awnings may be placed on the drip flap or other vertical surface only. No copy is permitted on any sloping surface unless approved by the DRB or the BAR. Additionally, the other thing that would need to be addressed as part of this would be the maximum width of the canopy sign, which would be limited to 75% of the canopy width. Now, the board does have the authority to provide exceptions to both of those requirements. And as you can see, it's 100% of the width of the canopy and it's on the sloping part. Mr. Wayne Waters is here. If you have any questions for him.
How are y'all tonight?
Good.
Any questions with this? Basically, the background is, we propose to do it in a silver background, which would actually try to match the roof of both the structure and the building. That's, and then the sign will be pushed all the way back up against as far as we can to the fascia board. That way it looks like it's attached. Basically the look of it is to have freestanding letters, where you really don't see the background, but there is one.
Where is this?
The old Oak Road Brewery next to, yes, sir. Building belongs to Brad Mallett.
Old EM Jones Chevrolet.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is there a light on the sign?
No, ma'am. God's natural light.
How wide is the tenant space?
The tenant space is about 40 feet.
I was actually there today and looked at this, and the picture makes the sign look bigger than it actually is.
Correct.
It's I think it's very
Zoomed in on
appropriately.
it some.
And if you look at the door, you can kind of get a sense
Right.
for it. It's very appropriately sized, in my opinion.
That was my thinking. Yeah, I mean, if you attach it to the facade or you put it up on the roof, I mean, it looks like it's better, but it looks like it's almost an extension of the roof line. If you continue the roof towards the street. mm,
You know, I know the ordinance says you can put it on the roof, but Mr. Mallett doesn't
Yeah.
want it on the roof.
Sure.
And if you look at the roof too much, it may leak. We don't want it.
Well,
You know,
my
because
point
of-
was in the scale of the roof width
Yes.
and with the same plane that it looks to be. It's 100% of that awning, but it's not 100% of the roof width.
Correct.
That's what I was thinking.
It'll look,
Mhm.
yeah, it's very appropriate.
Agreed.
Nice building, though.
We try.
There's no dimension or feel of 3D to the sign, and it looks kind of temporary. Can you explain what the letters are on top of the
Letters
background?
are 1/2 inch acrylic. They're,
So
they're raised and bolted to the aluminum structure.
so you mentioned there's no lights, so at night,
We've got good street lighting around from the bank and Dominion Energy. That area is lit fairly well, but there's no lights shining onto it directly.
you're not concerned that because of the flatness of the sign, it's not readily visible from down the street?
You'll be able to see it from the bank real well. Coming from Magnolia Street or coming from you'll be able to see it from Main Street, coming from the McDonald's side, coming from the subway side you won't, because that part of the building is blocked.
Are there any other graphics planned for the storefront, whether it's in the
The only thing is
windows or
probably just
anything?
A little window lettering that says, you know, you're here when you walk up to the door, but nothing that we have planned for it at the present time.
Any other comments? Is there a motion for approval? Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank y'all.
Next is 209 West Fifth North Street Dental Office, asking for preliminary approval.
This is a request for preliminary approval of a proposed addition to and renovation of the existing dental office and associated site improvements. This was last before the board in August of 2023. The proposed addition will be on the North Pine Street side. The addition is intended to address the corner and takes into account the future right-of-way of the West Fifth North Street widening. The future widening will put the building almost directly on the property line. The project will require the removal of some trees for the parking lot expansion. The larger trees associated with this property are actually located in the right-of-way. A tree removal permit and possible tree protection board is still required, and the applicant is strongly encouraged to apply early. 18 gravel spaces and 12 asphalt parking spaces will be added. The 8-foot landscape border adjacent to the North Pine Street right-of-way is not shown. The DRB has the authority to reduce or eliminate if appropriate. All materials should meet the minimum planting size required by section 8.7.1C. The exterior of the building will be completely renovated. Vertical hardy board and batten siding is proposed. Standing seam metal roof will replace the shingle roof, and the existing gable ends of the roof will be removed and replaced with a hip roof. 2 mirrored front and back shed roof additions are proposed for covering the main entrance facing the parking lot and the staff break room facing West Fifth North Street. And I will turn that over to the applicant.
Thank you very much. David Tomlin, landscape architect for the project. Dr. Rhett Deaton, our owner, and new to a project, our engineering team from Bowman Engineering. And I was just trying to think of how long it was since we've been here, and it's August of last year. And since that time, what we've been busy with is the big thing of getting architects or architectural drawings up to speed and getting our engineering up to speed. And the big thing that they're going to talk about today, we have been collaborating with SCDOT finally and getting some information on the right of way acquisition. I don't know if you remember the last time we presented, the only information we had really put that right of way right up to the face of our building. We found out that it's a little bit off. And last time we presented a building that had a corner cut off because of, we thought that the right of way was going to chip off part of our building. So I'll step back, let the rest of our team present and talk about, in particular, the trees, and then we have any questions.
I'm Abby Ranson. I am the main engineer on this project with Bowman. And we were able to get some more clarifying information from SCDOT and also Dorchester County on that widening project. And I have some more documentation in writing, emails, and some other PDFs that they sent me available. If you all want to look at them, just let me know. And the tree thing, I believe that the trees are in the right of way. And so I think we're just looking for some clarification on what the board would want to see as far as protecting those trees goes, since they are outside of our limit of disturbance on this project.
We've got a large live oak right at the corner of North Pine. And last time we presented, in part of our photos, there'd been some, one or two trees that Dr. Rett took down before the project started. That are those the ones that are in question?
That's what I'm trying to, there used to be some back here in the parking lot.
Those were, the arborist came out, they were actually dead. One was encroaching into my foundation, so they granted me the.
Okay,
So those are no longer, the only trees on the property are the live oak, which I assume is gonna go when they put the 5-lane highway in there. And then the ones on the corner back there, which I have no,
We got a big hackberry that you're pointing to right now, and then we've got a red bud in that 8-foot strap that we're saving, including it as part of the.
okay. Yeah, I left that comment in because they had been there previously. So if they are outside, and you're preserving the only other one that's on site, technically you don't need a tree removal permit and should be pretty straightforward. But just, we'd like to get that out there as soon as possible so that there's no conflict.
And I apologize, one person that wasn't able to be here today was our architect. So we can speak to the changes in the architecture right now, or we can take any questions. Obviously, Dr. Rett's been.
And so is this parking being paved?
Yes.
Only the
handicap.
that little corner would be paved.
Where it's striped, but L or
Yeah,
7, yeah.
get our handicapped people in our everyday parking,
Sure.
let that be paved, but the rest, keep it gravel. We've got a little rain garden in the middle where we, weren't able to pick up any parking to direct some of the water. But the thought is get it back into that landscape area where, plant some wet.
Sure. And I think we talked about it last time, there's no interconnectivity because the Oscars is just to the south of this, right?
Yes.
Line south.
Yeah, that's
So you're not connected. Okay,
we are now. Yeah.
right.
But
But moving
if I do
forward,
this,
and Tim, they're not required to provide interconnectivity, right? Or are they?
Sorry, what?
Are they required to provide interconnectivity to Oscars?
It's preferred.
That'll happen with the wide.
The issue is if there's no easement existing, it's not specifically required. In these types of instances, we can make exceptions. I don't know if that access to Oscars actually is beneficial in any way, shape or form for, moving traffic per se. Most people who are accessing Oscars are coming in off of 78 anyways. So I think would not be detrimental per se to eliminate this, to give more parking to a medical office.
Um,
How about the lack of buffer on Gun Pine Street? The building's what, 4 or 5 feet from the property line?
The building's about, but.
From the property line. That's your addition.
Yes. And
It's abnormal to do an addition right up to a property.
what we're trying to comply to is the frontage requirement.
I don't think there is a frontage problem.
It's neighborhood mixed use. There are frontage requirements, 35% on this particular. 35% has to be taken up by the building.
Well, they're taking up more than 35%.
Yeah. That's why it's not mentioned. They meet that requirement.
They exceed. But they're also not, there's no buffer on Pine Street.
Because it's a mixed use district, there is no specific requirement for
If there's not a
landscaping on that side.
requirement, okay, if there's not a requirement, then no discussion then. That's fine. Evidently. I mean, it looks good.
We've gone back and forth, and one of the things DOT may get after us, we're showing some buffering right along that parking area in the right of way.
Yeah, that buffer for the parking would be the one exception that's required. Or that from the board. They are showing the shrubs there on the to block the parking, which would meet the intent of the ordinance if DOT would allow them to plant them there. And that's going to be the biggest issue. They usually allow shrubs. They're not big fans of trees, as we saw on 2nd Street and Gum. So I think that this is a decent compromise as long as DOT allows them to leave it there.
but if they don't, you have to provide it on your site.
My hope is like, DRB said we need to. Because there's so much green space,
Mhm.
why not? This is an urban space, it's not within 80 site triangles. So that's where our hope is that we can make that argument. Got the support of the board that says she's better or.
I've had some preliminary feedback from SCDOT on that sidewalk that we were proposing right off that handicap parking to allow for, more travel into the building from those spots. And they are also proposing sort of a connection to this proposed sidewalk. You see that little stub out kind of at the sidewalk. With their expansion of that highway, they're also proposing sidewalks along the highway. So that sidewalk would kind of connect to their proposed sidewalk in the future. And they have been in agreement with the placement of the sidewalk, and they seem to be okay with that being in their space. So I would assume that they would be okay with also allowing us to have that space for landscaping.
So the intent is that would tie in with North Pine Street, sidewalk on North Pine.
They're
With the
proposing-
78.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
but
new
it's-
sidewalk on 78.
But it's stubbing up to North Pine. Why is it stubbing up?
So
There's a swell.
just where they're gonna connect. So the way they have, I wonder if it shows in this.
That would come over to Highway 78.
They're gonna have to cut it. across it.
The sidewalk is,
So I don't know if you can see, but it's
There's too many.
kind of, it goes up this
I
way,
got you.
and that's where our stub out would be and connect.
Okay, that makes sense.
What is the additional right of way on 78 that's being acquired?
It's it's 20 to 25 feet depending on where they're at along this throughout the corridor on both sides. So they said that they've had a few more conversations with DOT and have nailed that down a little bit better. Do you know what it's going to be from across this frontage here?
PDF, if that's okay, if I can pass that around. Okay.
So,
So our property is this one right here.
so these site plans don't indicate the new right of way. In the future, it indicates the existing right of way.
This landscape plan does not, but another page should. If you go to the site plan, C 400.
They're
These,
showing the new right of way on this plan.
yeah,
you
and,
just looked
and this
at.
also shows a transition there between, West Fifth North and Pine.
It's only 17 feet.
It's not showing it on the plan on the screen, right?
Yeah. Which is gonna
Um,
cut into your building.
C 400 should have it. So that line kind of slants on our property line. That would be the right of way
The
line.
property line you're showing on this drawing is the future property line after the right of way acquisition, right?
No.
There's the
Yeah.
present right of way.
It would be
the
cut
present
just
property
slightly
line.
in that corner.
The lighter
Like on the
line
corner?
each right of-
So you got that line on this drawing. It doesn't interfere with your building at all.
Right.
Okay.
But it doesn't agree with the plans there.
Yeah, it does.
No, it does not.
Well,
Because this is their property line. It should be shifted. Yes.
It looks like it's gaining property.
Yeah.
they've already shifted.
So the lighter weighted line is the new right of way line, but the one with the pins in the corner, that's the existing property. So it looks like you're gaining 3 feet. Is that incorrect?
These were the CAD file. I got these straight from the CAD files that Dorchester County provided.
Sure.
And it matched our geospatial everything. I'm not sure if they are in conjunction with like SCDOT and how they're showing. I don't know why they would add property per se. I think that there's-
You see where my confusion is the future SCDOT right of way actually is 3 feet off of your existing property line.
I think the bottom line is the drawings need to be more clear.
Agreed.
Yeah. We can't,
I was under the impression it was going in and it's only 17 feet. So when Tim said 20 feet.
Yeah.
I think theoretically, we're okay with what you're trying to do, just we can't see it on the drawing. So we need to be able to see it on the drawing. And typically the sidewalk to the south would also connect to 78.
Okay.
So
We
just,
could extend
they're
that
only
as
asking
well.
for preliminary, so just look at that. Or did y'all have any concerns down there?
Yeah,
I just don't
yeah,
think
this
plans
is
match.
inaccurate. This
We
doesn't
just-
match this.
Yeah, what we just told them was, we can't tell per the plans. The plans aren't clear. They need to be more accurate.
Exactly.
They're only asking for preliminary, so I think in theory, sounds like we're okay with it. It's just as it moves forward, they need. to
But
get-
there's a
be
major
clear.
problem with this conflict here because you don't have the land that you think you have on this drawing based on this.
Well, and I'm more concerned with the transitional right of way cutting off part of the
Mhm.
building.
Yeah, that's real important.
So Hart, you're saying that on that plan, it shows the buildings being cut off?
No.
Well, they're showing acquiring,
Because of the lines.
from an existing 37.5 foot right of way to a new 50 and then a transition onto Pine Street. And I believe that transition is gonna cut off where they're proposing their addition.
Is it possible to get the CAD for that PDF that you provided and overlay it so we can kind of apples to apples?
Yes, yep. I have the CAD and all the PDFs that Dorchester County had sent me.
Perfect.
They're in charge of the design for SCDOT.
We're in conversation, we thought we were getting, they were taking less than we originally thought,
Gotcha.
but we need to clarify.
I have a general question on the architecture of the building. I know your architect's not here, so we can defer it when you come back. But it appears that the design of the building changed dramatically aesthetic wise and atmosphere wise from the conceptual design. And I think this design sort of lacks a lot of character that the conceptual design has. So if the architect comes to the next meeting, he should be prepared to explain why.
It's been a little while, but from my recollection, it's a lot different from what we had before. Seems like there was like, I think you mentioned a tower element or something. But I don't, this building is not ringing a bell, and I could absolutely be wrong with that.
Right.
A lot of it's changed from that cutoff. Starting to try to be.
Well, I think the facade changed, the rhythm of the windows. It had a lot of clear story windows. In all the rooms, as opposed to, this looks like mostly standing seam roof kind of industrial building now versus a clinic. And I think your conceptual design was very well done. And I think we are looking for, low country details. And, the roof massing here, I think is too much.
But also some clarity in the graphic on what was the old part of the building. Because you're just adding on, right? Yeah, so
Where is?
I think the architect needs to be here.
Drawing that showed that pretty well.
Okay.
So I think when he comes back with drawings, if you can show before and after.
And just do what you want, but try to make it so it's really user friendly. So it's on one screen, on one page. So you can say before and after, rather than flipping down 5 sheets and seeing, oh. Yeah, just think about how it's organized so we can just understand it better. It goes quicker.
Was there an ownership reason for the change or no?
What's that?
Did you have a reason for the dramatic change?
So the only input we had is we want the longer windows for more light to come into the building. When you're working in a dental office, you're doing a lot of shade matching. You gotta use the natural light. And that's one of the drawbacks of the building I have now is there's just smaller windows. And oftentimes I have to take people outside. So I would like to bring that inside. It'd be nice.
You have a chair outside?
Oh, like that'd be neat.
On the board.
Under the tree.
I have a question. I'm Chad with Bowman, manager over there. One of the questions I have is the property line that you're talking about. Could you go back to that sheet again, the DOT?
The
You're saying
C400.
Yeah, the one that would C4. Okay, so the property line doesn't change, like regardless of what DOT does. Do we agree that
No.
No.
no, it'll get cut off?
Yeah, they're gonna take eminent domain. They're gonna take the front section of my property there. Yeah, it's gonna come right up to the front of the, you see on that where it says existing 1-story building and proposed building addition? So that's pretty clear cut right there. That's where I'm gonna add. That's what I have existing right there to the 2 blocks. But yeah, it's gonna come up literally to the front is from what I'm hearing. So that proposed right of way should be in more from my
Yeah,
understanding.
that label future SCDOT right away is wrong. Sounds like.
Definitely, because it should be.
Okay.
Closer to the building. That was the last time we had the cutout because we thought that they were gonna take that corner. So we redesigned everything to be what I would like it to be is a rectangle, more user friendly, more. That corner spot is gonna be kind of wasted space, so. I thought we were in the clear with the SCDOT and they weren't gonna take that corner, so.
We gotta just clarify.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments or questions? Architecturally, I think you summarized it pretty well. Trash enclosures,
Am I missing it?
I don't see it, yeah.
I will, right currently, I use Oscar's trash and they use my parking. So that's kind of the handshake deal I had for you. But yeah, obviously I'll have to do something. maybe.
I would assume that you're probably gonna have rollouts.
Your rollouts.
Yeah.
But you're not going to need a dumpster.
No, I don't produce that much trash to need a dumpster.
You'll just use
Couple
rollouts.
bags
Yeah.
a week, maybe, gloves, things like that. We take our sharps and stuff off. Somebody comes and gets them. So there's not a lot of garbage, so to speak.
So if you're gonna continue to use Oscar's dumpster, you need to just provide a path
What's that? A path? Yeah.
to it. I mean, it doesn't have to be concrete or whatever, but
And I
just
imagine
keep that in
they'll
mind.
continue to use my parking. It just, they'll have to go around. Cause I'm open Monday through Thursday.
Mm.
Their biggest business is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so it works out.
Parking lot lighting or anything like that? I don't see any on the building lighting. I don't see any poles in here. Y'all proposing?
Site light.
No? Okay.
Shuts down.
Cool.
It's not open.
There is one, there's one light post in the back. It was on one of the drawings.
Well, again, if DOT doesn't agree to the sidewalk and the shrubs, gotta have it on the plan. So I don't want you to go too far down the road with engineering, then have to revise a bunch of drawings because DOT never said yes. And that has happened. So. All right, any other comments or anything else y'all need to discuss? Okay, so they're asking for preliminary approval.
Make a motion for preliminary approval.
Second.
Any discussion? I think they've got a lot of work to do to get preliminary. So.
Did y'all have any more questions for us so we can make sure your next submittal is?
Yeah, I think we need to get our architect here and we need to clarify DOT. We gotta work.
Okay, so Bill, really,
Let me withdraw that.
okay,
I'm gonna withdraw.
he's gonna withdraw his. Okay, so then there needs to, all right, so Tim, that can just be withdrawn, right? We don't have to vote on a withdrawal or anything. We didn't vote at all, so.
If you didn't vote, I mean, if they choose to withdraw, you can do multiple
his-
preliminaries.
We're talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll withdraw them.
You withdraw the motion, yeah. That if there was no vote taken after
Right.
the discussion,
Okay,
If you want to withdraw this application,
it's not gonna hurt you.
Got some I mean, obviously, there was a couple of hiccups tonight, so we need to come back. and clarify that. And unfortunately, again, our architect, so we apologize for that.
That's what happens. It's all right.
Absolutely.
y'all are-
Thank you.
You're withdrawing the motion. Okay, or withdrawing the application. All right, that's fine. Thank you. Appreciate you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is Yancey Street.
all right. So the next item on the agenda is a request for final approval of proposed new 4,500 square foot flex space property zone GB general business. This was before the board in March for conceptual review. The proposed building has been relocated per the DRB suggestion. Parking is located to the rear and parallel on the main drive. A tree removal permit and tree protection board should have been applied for prior to final approval request. Proper tree protection will need to be provided for the tree proposed to remain on the property. The dumpster is shown within the required 5-foot setback border. The rear door of each unit opens onto the 5-foot setback. The proposed shrubs are located within the exit routes required. The drainage system area, note 9 on sheet C 1.0, has existing trees located within the area and proposed landscaping to be installed. A grading and drainage plan has not yet been provided. The drive aisles are all 20 feet or less, which is below the town's requirement of 24 feet for two-way traffic. The 3.1 average foot candles exceeds the permitted limit of 3. The turning exhibit provided shows an average vehicle entering and leaving the parallel parking spaces. It does not show a garbage truck entering the site and collecting from the dumpster. The exhibit also does not show a vehicle entering or leaving the building through the overhead doors. Architecture has been updated to reflect the suggestions provided by the DRB. Colors and materials have not been specified. So this is the site, and I will turn it over to the applicant. Do you have a specific sheet you want me to start at? Or is this good?
That's it.
All right.
Doing fine. How are you?
Good, good. Gonna tell us what you, how the plan changed from last time?
Well, based on the last submittal, and our last discussion here, I created, some pictures of the adjacent building as suggested. So the first two sheets are showing the site and, the existing building next door. I think it was suggested that I follow what JJR did, so we tried to do something similar. We moved the building down on the site, although that made parking extremely difficult. But I did the best I could in terms of providing 9 parking spaces with some swept path analysis. The 2 garage doors, as I told the owner, Mr. Melfi, I'm not quite sure he's going to be able to get anything more than a van into those. So they would actually perform much like the roll-up doors at 608, maybe, trolley, the building next to mine. I'm on next to Fashioned. I'm in the gray building, and then there's the 2 metal buildings which have roll-up doors on the back and a small little driveway that the tenants can access their space. So it's going to be something similar to that. It won't be, it'll be more of accessing, bringing some materials or whatever they want to. They won't necessarily be able to drive in. We provided, changed the architecture with the overhangs and the brick skirt and stuff that Mr. Beauchesne suggested. Changed the front porch to be more conventional. Provided the lighting.
Tim, can we talk from the site plan?
Sorry.
C1.
I wasn't at the last meeting. Can you introduce yourself, by the way, and explain your role in the project?
I'm Gene Brislin. I'm an engineer here in town, and so I'm doing the drawings, helping Mr. Melfi get through permitting.
Okay. And what is the function of the building? It calls it flex space, so
It's just trade office space. So Mr. Melfi's a plumber. He's going to use part of it, and I think he's going to probably lease one of the other units to something similar, HVAC or whoever he happens to coerce into that.
which side are you occupying? Have you decided that yet?
Whichever makes it work. I mean, you know, if it's easier to go on the other side, I'll do that.
And there,
We haven't decided. He hasn't decided which side.
there was a question about access and what DOT would allow. I think
So
you were
we've,
gonna check.
again, we've applied for the encroachment permit, which we did after the meeting. I've heard nothing back.
You mentioned one garage door is deficient and or
Well, there's one for each unit, right? So each unit has a garage door, and then they have a rear access door, which is more of a personnel door. But yes, that's all. There's only a small little office, and the rest is open space for equipment and stuff for them.
It seems like the building just doesn't fit on the site because the staff's comments about the dumpster enclosure, the doors to the rear, they can't open into the buffer, and there's got to be a concrete pad. at that rear door. So it just, based on staff's comments, it seems like that whole building has to slide towards west boundary.
And Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said the drive aisle widths were not sufficient.
Correct.
Right.
So for two-way traffic, we usually require a minimum of 24 feet. And I had dimensions added to this. This here was 20 feet, the dimension from the end of this parking space to the beginning of the hatched space there.
So the
It
hatch
got as
space-
narrow as 13 feet at one spot. The lowest, the most narrow that we usually go down to when we know it's low traffic type of situation like this would be 21 feet would be pushing it. 22 feet would be optimal for a narrow two-way travel lane, but that does need to be approved by staff or the board.
So, and that was kind of my point is, to your point, going out the rear door, you have to have a 5x5 landing going out that door by building code to slide it towards Boundary Street, where already the 13-foot drive aisle. I don't think it can slide. I think you're correct. The building's too large for what they're trying to do, or for the site they're provided.
Right.
Probably a better phrase.
And the lowest, what's the dimension for where the lowest garage door is closest to Yancey Street, from like the garage door to the curb? What's the backup distance out of that garage? You know?
Again, I didn't anticipate cars going in and out of the garage in this particular scenario. We did in the other scenario. But in this one, I told the owner that you're not going to be able to pull cars in and out of those garage doors. They're just for access. You're going to pull up to the side,
just-
and unload stuff, and then close the door.
It's just a big, okay, it's just a bigger space where they could
That's correct.
unload. Okay,
Right. So there was no anticipated drive into those doors.
got it.
Again, the prime example that I can think of, and that's just because I look at it every day, is the 608 on Trolley, which is across from the old car wash, and they all have big roll-up doors on the back for access. So this is a very similar situation.
Okay.
Except they're not on the back, they're on the front.
And Tim, what is the rule is we're allowed to approve an encroachment in the setback for the dumpster enclosure?
Yes, you can approve
park
that
though.
if you choose to allow it to go down to 1 foot. Basically, that should also have the 8-foot landscape border for the parking area, so that would go in conjunction with that. So you'd be reducing that requirement down to whatever this dimension is here at the backside.
And the number 9, the bottom, that's a pond.
So that's going to be a combination of infiltration trenches or underground storage and PVC pipe type. ADS does a piping system that's a 24-inch pipe. So I lose 1/3 of the volume with gravel when I do an infiltration trench. And so that's just that's the area which I anticipate, because of the natural flow, stormwater flow in the watershed. That's the area it comes off that side of the property. So that's where I'm going to put that. Although Mr. Melfi had asked me about doing a gravel parking lot, so the impervious surface is much smaller. So
So what's the dashed line that goes through that rectangle?
that is the front setback, and then the 5-foot setback. If you go to the landscape plan, you see the 8-foot buffer setbacks from the parking lot. All right, so those are different ones.
How deep is the building, Gene?
So Tim, always looking for that
40 feet by 112.
that drainage
With
can't,
40 feet.
Yeah, 40 feet.
With 40 feet, you don't need a back door.
Don't need a back door.
Do not, or you need a back door when you get to 50 feet.
Yeah.
But not 40 feet
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we could,
because of your travel distances.
yes.
So you can eliminate those back doors and eliminate the problems the lack of pads for egress. They're not required egress. You
No,
don't
they're
need them.
not required.
You
for
don't,
egress either.
so he can, don't you still have to have two doors though?
No,
No,
Just the one?
we don't have to have one for egress. We're under 50 people.
they can put doors at the ends of the building and the front and meet any requirement.
But Tim, can that drainage system be in the buffer?
We don't typically allow ponds to be
That's not-
built in the front buffer.
You just said it was.
And I
So
don't know
that-
that I need that whole area.
Just
I just have
one.
designated that area as a place to put it. Right? So it may be even, I don't know. And I could go back further. And again, I just put an area that said, okay, this is where I'm gonna put my infiltration trench or my pipes to store, which I did pipes up on North Cedar. So if I need to slide that towards the back of the building to miss that, I can. It's not an issue.
So if you
It's a half
drive,
an acre, right? I mean, so it's, I don't have a whole lot of runoff.
Gene, can't you park under power lines? You can park under those power lines and get a whole lot, or drive under those
Well,
power lines.
yeah, the problem I got, Bill, is I got guy wires there, right? So that's, we were gonna talk to SCDOT, Dominion and see if we can move the guy wires. but
Yeah, you
that's
got
the-
wires and you got obstructions in the way.
Right, so I got guy wires there. So the curb is kind of set right at the edge of the guy wire,
Okay,
or the edge of the pavement.
okay.
So,
so if someone is unloading at the garage door to the bottom, the vehicle can't turn around, right? So it's gonna back up. It has to back up, kind of plan north
yes,
all the way towards the driveway.
You can turn around 16 feet.
yes. Again,
For the
when the
pickup.
building was up, it was much easier to do that, right? But yeah, now it's, as I said in my opening, it's challenge with the building down this end.
So this plan doesn't work for you. So you generated this plan in response to,
Comments from the board's last meeting.
and
Well, that plan had some issues too. We were trying to help. It's not like we
That's,
said, hey.
I'm not saying that
this.
either one of them are perfect, right?
And
But I
you-
mean, in terms of, I did that one and then I did this one. And while I was doing this one, I went, wow, this is difficult. So obviously in hindsight, maybe we should have, looked at the other one a little tighter in terms of trying to fix issues as opposed to just moving the building.
That wasn't we did not dictate
Right.
that solution.
Yes.
We offered that solution. Yeah.
Sure.
so I assume you're not happy with this plan. So is there a hybrid of best of both worlds that you can generate?
Yeah, possibly.
Do you recall what the major DBR comment that forced the shifting of the building or the parking?
I'd have to go back and watch the video. I don't remember exactly, although I did watch the video to get some information, but I don't remember the specific comments.
I think the board specifically asked him, was it possible to move it to the front, move the parking to the back of the building? That was the comment that I took from the meeting and sent in my comment letter from the board.
And this is not that, right? It's not to the,
Well,
depends on what you call the back, I guess.
it does. In my opinion, I feel this addresses that particular comment. Previously, these parking spaces were up front, closer to Yancey Street. And the building was tucked into that corner. So this accomplishes the request to move the building and put the parking to the back. He can't really move it forward closer to boundary because of the power lines and the clearances needed there. It's a difficult site. And this strip of land behind, you know, that's the property owner to the north, that's his property that comes down to Yancey Street. So it's tough. I think he's done his best to meet that request. But I don't know if this actually is better than the last plan, in my opinion.
I get all the easy ones.
What is the maximum foot candles or lumens or whatever measurement y'all use?
It's 3.0 for the parking. So he's at 0.1. I just wanted to point out that it's still above. The foot candles should taper down to as close to 0 as possible at the property line. But in the parking lot, it's 3.0.
Okay, but it's, so we're talking about a difference of 0.1.
Yeah,
Okay,
and it's not a lot, just highlighting the things that need to be addressed.
copy.
Have y'all still got the site plan you had last time?
Yep.
Why don't we look at that? Cause I think it was better.
How critical are the roll-up doors? Does it seem?
See that,
Yeah.
sir?
Hey, Gene.
I'd like to. I just want to. Just the side, maybe where they're at.
Gene, you haven't gotten any feedback from DOT on your driveway.
So I sent, you were here, I sent an email to Larry Green, right, there's two options for the drive, the bottom right on Yancey, right up there by the intersection. Right. And you need one of them to be armed, right, so I'm toast, right, so I sent him an email and said, hey, I highlighted those two areas, I said, where do you want, right, and the only comment I got from him, which I assume he wants, you know, he's waiting for us to submit, is site distance is important. I went, okay, I tell them going in on the turf, okay, so that's why I put it up there by the intersection. So anyway, so we submitted after this meeting, we
Do you remember the distance between the corner, on the old plan, the distance between the corner of the building and the property line? Or at least the drive aisle width, it's better.
well, it was, again, I don't remember. I'm guessing 14, 15 feet, something like that, right? So the idea was though, that you would drive in and then you would drive out. So you're driving in the drive out lane. You don't really need, I'm not going to have dual traffic coming around that corner of the building. It's just going to be one way.
I think the suggestion was, and why we suggested looking into putting the parking on the north end of the building was every parking space has to go through that 13 feet, as opposed to now you have 5 or 6 spaces, 7 spaces that don't have to go through such a narrow corridor.
Right. It's just that the maneuverability is more difficult here. I did do, you know, that's why I had to block off that one space in the upper right-hand corner there. There's that's a no parking zone, just so I could get, yeah, there you go, right, to get into those spaces. Whereas before, I just came straight down and all the maneuverability happened down there on the south part where I could pull in and back out and do a 3-point turn to get out. Now, it's just really difficult to maneuver in that area.
And this is paved, right? I mean, it's asphalt, curb and gutter. and
Well,
asphalt.
that's what Mr. Melfi asked me if that was mandatory. And I said, well, like, I'd rather just be North Charleston does, or Berkeley County, if you have more than 10 spaces, it has to be paved, right? But we're at 9. And so, but the UDO, I didn't see a requirement for that. Is there one in there?
There is,
Says something about 10 spaces, you have to have drainage, but
yeah, you have small parking spaces, small parking lots versus large parking lots, and I can't remember the exact number here. This is below that threshold. I believe it's 10 or 15 spaces. So it could go down to a gravel lot
Right.
per our ordinance.
So Mr. Melfi, originally I thought it was gonna be paved. He asked me this past week, could we make it gravel?
I think
Double
if
check.
it's grass and not paved, that changes a lot of things. I mean, it makes it, a lot of these issues kind of go away. Sort of, you know, because you can park under the power lines easier and not get constricted by the curb and work with what you have.
Yes, so again,
And-
he asked me this week, and so yes, you're right. If I do go to gravel, then that front curb goes away.
You
The
can
only thing I'll
eliminate-
have to do is pave the handicap, you know, I'll have to have you know, that handicap and then a sidewalk to the front door, but other than that,
You eliminate all pavement except the handicap
yes.
and sidewalk.
Tommy's business he has no requirement for formal parking.
Right.
His employees
No customers.
are in and out. He doesn't have customers come to his business.
Oh.
He has the one lady that works in the office. She can find a spot to park under a cactus somewhere or something, anyplace.
I do want to point out though, that
Thomas and
the
Harville
property is
Park.
zone GB and it's not just restricted to the trades types uses. I mean, it doesn't make sense for a restaurant to go in here, but a restaurant could go in here.
It could turn into a garage, could it not?
Yeah, it could be a mechanics shop. The GB is our most liberal zoning district. It allows just about anything.
Mhm.
I mean, if he wanted to set up a short-term rental in it, he could do a short-term rental. That being said, I mean, that's highly unlikely.
Sure.
But those, I don't think that assuming that only these types of uses are going to go in here is the proper assumption.
I agree with staff on that one.
20 years from now, it could be anything.
A tenant is not gonna lease a space if it does not fit his needs.
Mhm.
If you don't have the parking the tenant needs, he's going somewhere else.
As somebody
Tenants
who
are not stupid.
enforces business licenses, I'm chasing people constantly who go into spaces that literally don't have any parking. I'm gonna shut 2 of them down tomorrow. So I'm with Tim in the grand scheme of things. For every 3 people out there that do the right thing, sign the right lease, do the right thing, there's at least 1 other that will not care what the rules are until they get caught.
And to be honest with you,
Let 'em take
if
the
we go
punishment.
to a gravel parking lot, you know, I think we can have the space to get 9 spaces that's required. And I agree with you, if we go to gravel, that will allow more maneuverability on the front because we can encroach into the power easement. So anyways, I'm still kind of a fan of the building up high as opposed to this, but either one is, again, if we make it gravel, I think either one is workable.
I mean, I just think at the end of the day, I think the building doesn't fit. There's too much square footage for the site. Site plan is challenging, but that's usually a reflection of you're trying to fit too much on the site is where that challenge usually comes from. There could be a solution where instead of going down, you just have just a bay of parking. Instead of turning south and going along the building, you just have a bay of parking. That would get your 9 spaces, even if it's gravel. And then you could tell people not to park there in that space and then just drive along the front of the building. I don't know. It's a challenge for me, for final approval for sure, but you know, see what everyone else says.
We want to get as much approval as we can get.
Yeah.
Wherever that happens to land, even if it's preliminary, right, with some comments, right? We just want to keep moving forward here.
Would someone like? to
Why
make a motion, or-
don't we pick a scenario, either the original site plan or the site plan, the second site plan. And let them go with that.
And let's caveat that with it will be gravel.
And the
Okay,
comment is there will be gravel.
right, so that we can.
Your
We can
handicap
drive
spaces,
into the power easement.
your handicap spot will have to be paved,
Yes, correct. Handicap will be paved
Concrete
with
or-
a sidewalk to the front door.
right?
I think the applicant should decide where the building goes on the site. Not us,
I agree.
because there's confusion.
Mm-hmm.
What's the pick?
Certainly you know,
Well, they can come back with the one they choose. They
Right.
don't have to choose today.
I think they still have. If you're still going for final approval, I don't know if we're in a
Oh.
position to give it. So
So-
you probably will have to come back.
Yes.
And we should get some comments on architecture as well. So we need to look at that.
We should talk about the architecture, yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
you understand the site comments that we had here? Basically.
I
you-
think so.
You decide the building where,
Yep, yep.
and, I think, pervious material is acceptable.
Okay.
Probably eliminates or really reduces the detention requirements.
Yes. it will. But we're gonna get.
If we can talk about the architect.
Yeah,
then?
let's.
Yes, we do.
And
Okay.
let's talk about landscaping and architecture.
Architecture, before we had two vertical. We had the vertical, actually three vertical, brick areas. We went to just one in the middle with the water table. Kept the windows, went to a 2-foot overhang. And changed the porch columns to something more conventional. Based on the comments last time. So, that's kind of where we are. Tommy did bring some samples of the colors for the brick and for the metal. Right, and that's the metal panel.
The middle brick, I like the middle brick.
I like the middle brick too, but.
You know.
And what's the roof finish?
It's gonna be a tan color. You didn't have that. But it'll complement the brick.
If I could just get those
Yes, yes,
specifics, that would be helpful.
yes.
Just
Sorry.
choose the one you like of those three for the final. For the final. Yeah, just submit those to Tim, please.
What are the columns holding up the canopy?
They're gonna be wood wrapped with, painted the same color as the panels.
Basically 6x6.
6x6, well, it'll be 10x10, it'll be 6x6 with a one by rack.
I would suggest some more. I'll use the term, because there's a residential neighborhood across the street. I think there needs to be more kind of low country details. And that could be simple as using divided windows. Divided lights.
Okay.
Certainly I would clad the columns for the awning brick up to the wainscot that you're showing.
Okay.
What's the garage door finish?
It's supposed to be tan, same color as your roof.
You're gonna have a glass in the garage doors.
No, no glass in the garage.
Any signage?
No signs.
You could make, if you're not gonna have electric operators on the garage doors, you could just make them out of 1x lumber and have them swing barn door open. Instead of being overhead, just have them swing open.
Okay.
That'd be a whole lot cheaper. And it'll look more residential and more in keeping with the neighborhood. Yeah. Not roll up, just swing them open like barn doors. Just like barn doors. Well, that's up to you. Just a suggestion.
It's just, yeah.
Only a suggestion.
Yeah,
Mutton bars, put mutton bars in.
Yeah, I think I would like to
Well,
see
those are
some.
just sectional doors, that's fine.
so can we look at the pictures that I did of the building next door?
They're cheap. The building next door is singularly ugly.
Yeah, that one right there. Can you zoom in on that, Tim? I don't know
On
if you
both
can.
sides, both neighbors are ugly buildings.
Yeah, they have just plain, office windows, aluminum clad windows there too, which is why.
I think, again, if you go to a simple overall site plan,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
residential street leading
Yeah,
right to your facade. I think you need to soften up your facade versus it looking, right now it looks 100% industrial.
Yeah.
I know that's the intent.
Yeah.
But I think just with simple window treatments,
Okay,
you can soften it up.
okay.
I don't know if you want to consider Bermuda shutters or something.
What's the name of that neighborhood?
The one across the street.
Yeah.
It's Field View.
No, it's old. It's been there a very long time.
Somerville Fields.
But I mean, we can come back and change it from, aluminum to something more conventional with lights in it, more conventional windows.
Tim, back on the site plan, have they provided the area for landscaping along the streets? That's all under the easement, under the power lines. No trees.
No trees allowed.
So, but doesn't the UDO have a thing that says you have to provide trees outside of the easement?
They can swap down to smaller ornamental trees that won't grow up into the power lines and give the necessary 15-foot clearance from the actual lines. They do need to provide, they can move some of those required trees that would normally be required in those locations to other spots, but I don't see a lot of room to move larger trees. We'd prefer to see them be successful. But I don't know. It's a tough one here, and with that power line literally cutting across and into the property, it cuts the ability to put anything up front there and soften that corner.
What size buffer is required along the street here?
In GB, there's the 10-foot setback, and that 10-foot setback should be filled with landscape.
So 10 feet.
So the plans are missing a 10-foot buffer.
Essentially,
No, they have it down there.
It doesn't have
Yeah.
the trees in it.
They can't, it's under a power line.
With it. Yeah, but they're supposed to put them outside the power line,
No, you cannot do that.
outside the power line.
No, you're not supposed to.
What?
No. You're not required to do that. It's never been required.
It is in the UDO.
No, it isn't.
All right,
No.
let's move on. Any other discussion?
I have a question on the garage doors. During the operations of your business, do you foresee those doors being open 8 hours a day? Or are they intended to be closed? And just open when needed? Okay.
Any further comments or questions?
I have a comment.
Sure.
This is not a residential building. And I think we need to remember this is general business. It is not a residential building. And it needs to be able to look like a business. And for us to recommend that For me personally, to recommend that we make it look more residential is not appropriate for the site.
Just talking about the window mullions, right?
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous.
Okay,
Well, remember our seminar the other day about context? Look to your left, look to your right, context. That's where the comment on context.
That's why
comes
I'm
in,
for it.
because
Okay.
Neighbors.
any further discussion?
The only comment I'd make is it just seems like it's 12 pounds of stuff in a 10-pound bag. We're narrowing the drive aisles. We're losing landscaping. I understand, Tim, what you're saying with, right, if I heard you correctly, if you can't put trees in the buffer because of because of overhead lines, you find someplace else to put the trees, correct?
Yes, you can.
So
You don't
you
have to.
can or you have to? I'm sorry.
It's not,
I hate to put you on the spot.
yeah, and I should, we haven't had a lot recently, where we've had this particular issue where it's been this tight, but they should, where feasible. It does not make sense to cram more than is going to fit. The landscaping's not going to be successful.
No.
You know, and it will lose more of the landscaping to, you know, just being overcrowded.
Mhm.
And then the site's not going to look good.
And I agree with that, with the caveat of the building size could change and those feasibilities could improve. And that's where, as a comment, that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yes,
is
and-
the building slightly smaller would resolve a lot of these heartburn that I think everybody has outside the architecture. And that's just my 2 cents.
All right,
I agree with both of y'all.
okay, well, we need to move this meeting forward. Would someone like to make a motion? They're asking for final approval.
Can we modify that to ask for preliminary approval?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, they're asking for preliminary approval on both site and architecture, of course.
Based on the comments that we've received. And our comment of changing it to gravel.
Is there any world where this building shrinks in size?
I don't know, that's a discussion.
Okay,
Blackwell's next door, which is commercial. We've got the town trailers and the fire practice squads, so we do fit the area and we really have to be looking a lot better than anything that's around us.
Yeah,
Except for it might be just large.
the use isn't really my concern. It's the weird shaped lot. I mean, this almost qualifies for the hardships as listed for a variance on some things, but you know, it's a unique shaped property and the size of the building seems to be adding to the challenges. So I guess I don't know that I can recommend approval.
the self-imposed challenge. because the
It
building's
is.
Too big.
It's a self-created hardship.
All right, we need to, is someone going to make a motion?
Well, before we do that, I agree the building's too big for the site, but I would still vote in favor of it. And I think we need to get to that point.
Mhm.
So instead, so they can get through this thing next time. Is it a break? Is it a deal killer? This building size, is it a deal killer for anybody?
The size,
Is it a deal killer?
I think there's too many challenges that we have to overcome for them because of that size. And that's where I would draw my line. If they're unwilling to reduce the size, why are we willing to give them 6 exceptions?
I don't think the exceptions are that big a deal personally.
And if we
But
move the building. and
but
go-
is it a deal killer and do they need to do to reduce the building before they come back? Or is it just wasting time?
I don't think it's absolutely required. I just don't see another way around it. If they can make it all work, again, I'm not the engineer. If the engineer can make all of these problems go away and not reduce the size of the building, I will be for it. The size of the building is not my issue in terms of
Any more
scale.
yes or no answers about is it a deal killer? Yes, no, deal killer. Not, it's not a deal killer evidently.
It's not a deal killer, but it's causing the problems.
Bingo.
Yeah, I think that,
I don't think personally the problems are that great. It's whatever.
Well, again, note the 6 exceptions. Hopefully, I'm gonna get rid of a lot of those when we go to gravel and can move around and possibly, again, move the building to a place that provides some maneuverability that will also be increased by, again, going to gravel and losing the curbs. So I'm hoping that we can lose or get rid of a good many of those exceptions just by doing those 2 things. And so then, I'll discuss with Mr. Melfi about the building size and let me make a stab at seeing if I can get the exceptions down to 0. If I can't get there, then I'll have to have a discussion with him. But I'll take Tim's, comments, all the things that and make sure that I meet all those.
I'll make a motion to approve preliminary with all the comments that have come out of today's meeting.
I second.
I just want to say something about the motion. To consider the comments, because they're gonna have to come back and present something solid to us. And some of the comments may not be what they want to do. I just think some of the comments might not be what they want to do, but I think there are certain comments that he's been addressing that will make a difference, okay? I think the architecture is what needs a little tweaking right now, so. The site and everything they're working on, they've taken the comments.
Are you have any issue with that clarification?
I have no issue with that.
All right, and I think, all right, for further discussion, I think there's a different site plan solution. So I think we can move forward, but looking forward to seeing what you come up with. Okay, so let's have the vote for preliminary approval considering the discussion and conditions.
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is 1605 Central Avenue.
1605 Central Avenue is a request for final approval of the proposed new Papa John's drive-through. This was last in front of the board in March. It's a small 1,300 square foot drive-through pizza restaurant. There's public access primarily. Business will be conducted via the drive-through ordering. Access to the site can be either on Cotton Hill or through the shopping center. 15 parking spaces are proposed, which far exceeds the minimum requirement. Planting material should meet the minimum planting size required by 8.7.1C. Trees should be a minimum 3-inch caliper and evergreen shrubs, 7-gallon, deciduous shrubs and grasses, 5-gallon. An address application and lighting plan are still required, but these items are typically reviewed and approved by staff. Architecture for the building has not changed significantly from the prior submittal. Proposed dumpster enclosure mimics the design of the building and is consistent with finished materials. The DRB generally felt that the design and materials were consistent with the guidelines and the overall design was good. It appears that the RTUs, the rooftop units, will be adequately screened and the requested pedestrian connection is being shown on the plans. Lossie, if you like, I did get the new set in here that reflects those changes. Yes, see.
Good evening, guys. Sorry, I haven't signed in yet real quick. All right. So I'm Lossie Knight with LFK Architects. And just to follow up on our previous meeting, I think there was a request to go ahead and extend the sidewalk to connect to the existing shopping center. Unfortunately, the civil engineer is not here. So I'm going to play civil engineer and trust me, I don't know what I'm doing. If you go to C301, that shows that connectivity, and also C302. So that connects to that existing sidewalk that then is kind of interconnected with the Graco home store and the Family Dollar. And then the other request was to provide a little more enclosure around the front entry where we have sort of a potential for outdoor patio. Tim, if we could flip to the rear of the set, we've got some renderings in there that show a proposed really simple aluminum railing. This is just a 36-inch powder coated aluminum railing that keeps people or kids from walking out into the drive-through lane and provides a little bit more enclosure. And obviously there's landscape kind of layered against this. So I think those were the two comments from last time. If there's any questions, I'm happy to respond.
What's the paving material in the patio there?
It's scored concrete within the entry patio. I think one of the next slides too kind of gives you a little bit of a ground level view once you go a little bit further. Yeah.
Did you consider some kind of sunshade device for the patio seating?
Yeah, we discussed that last time, and I think it was somebody from the building department that spoke up saying it would trigger some bathroom or additional toilet room requirements.
Rebecca Brown, who's the building official, she indicated that if there's outdoor seating there for, it could be considered restaurant seating, and they would need to provide bathroom facilities. So that's building code.
And there's
for
no
you.
inside dining here at all.
It's-
It's just pickup.
It's just pick up pizza, yeah, and drive through. Yeah.
There's a lot of people walking there, like they're gonna eat inside.
Yeah.
In the picture.
Yeah.
So do you really think that patio would get used at all?
It makes a nice entrance.
Yeah, we had to talk the developer into doing that. You know, they keep saying that it's just a drive-through pickup and people are just going to Google them, find the address, and then run and get their pizza, I guess is how they say it works. But you know, perhaps I think somebody might have a phone call or, you know,
The pizza may not be ready.
yeah, pizza might not
They
be
need
ready.
a
Maybe
place to
hang out
sit
there.
For a second, yeah.
Is that a walk-in pickup area with the double doors on the
It
front?
is, yeah.
So the double door entry, you walk in, so the paving you got out there makes it a nice entry. You can tell where everything is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you never know what's gonna happen in the future. They might decide to do something different.
Yeah.
It's just crazy that sunshade triggers.
It's not the sunshade.
I
it's the
know. It's the
tables.
yeah, well,
So if they could provide seating, but no tables, I think would be the threshold.
Why don't they provide the sunshade with no tables?
Or that, it's kind of up to them if they want to do it.
I will say I do appreciate them looking into the sidewalk and having that black anodized railing. I mean, it's clear that you heard us last time and I appreciate that.
Let's let them figure it out.
Okay. Think everyone okay with materials as shown on the sample down there? On the.
Yep.
All right, any discussion or questions? Asking for final approval. Any, someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion that we give them final approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? I'll signify by saying aye if you approve.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Lottie.
Thank you.
424 Old Trolley Road.
The first item under new business is a request for final approval for proposed redevelopment on 0.61 acres for one two-story apartment building and one three-story townhouse building. Property zoned NMX neighborhood mixed use is located at 424 Old Trolley Road. The existing land use is a vacant two-story corrugated metal commercial building. A tree removal permit is required and tree protection board may be necessary. It appears that there are a number of grand trees proposed for removal and those slated for preservation may have larger than permitted encroachments into the critical root zones. The applicant is requesting that the 15-foot buffer be reduced to 10 feet in the rear to accommodate the drive aisle for the three-story townhouse building. This will also allow the proposed park space barbecue area to fit. Existing overhead utilities on the north property line will remain in place. Existing fences to remain in place. There are 12 parking spaces for 11 units. 7 will be constructed using permeable pavers. Foundation plantings are proposed for both buildings. Landscape plan notes should be reviewed for accuracy and conformance to town of Somerville requirements. So switching to architecture. This is designed to fit in with the shopping centers to the south. To the north is a self-storage facility. West of the proposed development are older single-family residential lots in Quail Arbor. And to the east are older commercial buildings outside the town's jurisdiction. Building A is a 2-story, 6-unit apartment building. Each apartment has 2 bedrooms. It's located at the front of the parcel where the older metal building was previously located. Rooftop units will serve the building and will be adequately screened per the town's ordinance. The building has a low slope roof sloping down from front to rear. The roof line is stacked with a single overlap at the center of the building. The low slope is broken into 2 masses with a central break between the 2 planes. Deep 4-foot overhangs on the front and 2-foot 4-inch on the sides. Canopy trellis details similar to the adjacent commercial buildings to the south. Units have either a balcony or patio space. Building B is a 3-story, 5-unit townhome building. Each unit has 3 bedrooms. It's located at the rear of the lot, running parallel to the power lines that run on the north property line. Entries on the first floor are located on both front and rear facades. Each unit has a drive-under garage. The second floor is living space and the third floor contains the bedrooms. Each unit has a second floor porch space facing the interior parking lot side. Similar single slope roof, but with a greater pitch from front to rear on the 3-story building will be finished in shingles. There are 2 separated sloped roof areas with a lowered central area providing a break in the roof line. Sloped roofs provide similar overhangs, short overhangs down the rear and larger in the front. Materials are similar for both buildings: porch trellis, canopy details, cable railings for porches and balconies. Queen size general shale magnolia bay brick with an ivory mortar for the first floor on both buildings. And oyster shell tabby stucco is proposed for the knee wall surrounding the patios on the first floor apartment units facing Old Trolley. Gray, white, and tan stucco details added on central bays. Fiber cement panels proposed for most siding applications. Gray metal fascia on gutters and gray pre-manufactured canopies are proposed over the entry doors. So, having said all of that, here's the site. And this highlights the requested buffer reduction here. And this area here is where there would be possible encroachment into the critical root zone of this tree that's proposed to be saved. So this would be an exception that would be required to be made. That also helps accommodate maneuverability in and out on the 24-foot drive aisle provided here on the back, parallel spaces, and here as well. I think that addresses most of my comments, and I will turn it over to the applicant now.
I have a quick question, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Is this for final approval? Has this been presented to the board?
It has not been presented before. They did come in with final. We typically prefer to see a project twice at the bare minimum. We do have conceptual, preliminary, and final. You can grant preliminary and final at the same time if you so choose. But they did request final is what they came in at.
Thank you, Tim. My name is Eric Ladson with Earth Source Engineering. We handled the civil engineering design for the site. I'm accompanied by Lassie and Ladson from LFK. They were handling the architectural drawings. Tim did a pretty good job of summing up the site, but yeah, the owner is trying to added some residential units as at the end cap of this commercial strip to try and create sort of a mixed use development. We do have proposed interconnectivity between the neighboring site at 428 Trolley as well as our own drive aisle off of Trolley Road. We do have some of the parking interior for building B. The rest is exterior. Any additional parking for any of the guests for the tenants. The owner was proposing a shared parking agreement with 428 as their hours do accommodate for it. We are proposing an underground detention system in the main drive aisle, accompanied by that detention pond at the rear of the site, at the west corner, and then discharging to the westernmost point of the site. We do have, as Tim said, we have overhead power lines that we are coordinating with Dominion. Overhead power is existing to stay, as it is also serving the Quail Arbor neighborhood behind us. If you guys have any questions.
Can you show us the context of what you're adjacent to? Lots will do that.
Okay, sure. No problem.
All right, good evening again. So Tim, thank you for working with us on getting kind of a condensed presentation. We have a lot of stuff in here for context, a lot of specifications, a lot of details. I want to make sure we captured everything. So I'll try to run through the presentation and love to answer any questions. So the existing building is that two-story pre-engineered metal building that you see on the lower left-hand side of the screen there. So it's a little mixed-use building, computer repair shop, a glass supply, and then the second floor has sort of a office/living quarters. So that's what we would actually be removing. On the back of the site, there's about 5 other little sort of secondary structures and buildings that are sheds that would be coming down. We'd be utilizing that existing curb cut right there. Let's see if we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so I think everybody probably knows the context. Just across the street, we have the auto repair shop. We have another storage facility and some other smaller businesses. Tim, if we could, yeah, let's go to the next slide, please. So this is the existing 428 retail center that there was an existing building that we renovated for Mr. Newman, the developer. And so this heavily influenced our new design, as this is sort of a contiguous, sort of becoming a mixed use kind of master plan approach with a series of buildings. So we wanted to sort of make sure we were consistent with some of the architecture. So when it comes to the stucco and the brick and some of these pergola elements over the door, a Garapa wood pergola with a steel lintel. So all these features, even including the lighting, we wanted to consistently use those on this next phase of the project. Next slide, please. That's 440, which again was the existing center that we renovated. Next slide. So this was 460, and for us, it's kind of funny. This project started in 2018 when Mr. Newman came to us and said, hey, let's start at 460. So this is at Trolley Road and Pointer Drive. And so this is a new retail center. The image on the right-hand side shows you that rear courtyard. So this is set up for small cafes, retailers, salons, just kind of neighborhood business. So this is kind of what kicked it all off for us. And then Tim, if we can go to maybe one of the bird's eyes, if we kind of keep going, I think it was supposed to be page 15, if I'm not incorrect. Yeah, right there. So lower left-hand side is 460 Trolley and Pointer Lane. As you move to the right, we keep seeing the development grow where Mr. Newman was acquiring these properties. So we go to 460, then we go to 428. And finally, far in the distance, you can see our site that we're proposing tonight. So this is about 1,000 feet of frontage along Trolley that he's improving, and we're looking for some consistent architectural language. And we were excited to hear that this new product was not going to be retail. We actually did a retail study for him, but he was interested in doing something more mixed use. And I think that fits in well with the zoning of the property. So it's really a smaller kind of boutique apartment. There's only 6 units. And then the same thing with the townhomes. It's only 5 units. Let's see, next slide, please. You can kind of see the overall context. All right, next slide. This kind of shows it better. So now we're at the other end. So to the right of us is the life storage, self-storage facility. You can kind of see where that power line cuts through the site. And again, we're kind of directly across from the auto repair shop and some of those other contexts directly across from us on Trolley Road. Tim, if we can go ahead and maybe go to page 19 or PDF 19. Yeah. Oh, you know what? We can back up. Let me just back up one if you don't mind. There you go. So this is the apartment building. They're flats. So there's 3 units on the bottom and 3 on the second floor. And we wanted to kind of carefully respond to this relationship between the front of the apartments and the public sidewalk space there. And so we thought about kind of creating a very simple threshold there where we've got these small little knee walls that create a little bit of privacy right there at the patios in front of the residences. And this would be sort of a tabby stucco knee wall with a brick cap on it. And you can sort of see some of the design elements on this facade are very consistent with the adjacent retail center. We got stucco, we got the Garapa trellis features kind of over the porches. Next slide, please. And then in the back of the development, you can see on the left-hand side, that's the townhomes. We're calling that building B. So those are 6 units. We're parking below on the first floor, and then the next 2 floors above are the residential units. And then in the center, we've got this kind of common garden-like, park-like space, which I'll get into that more. We have some enlargements of that. Let's see if we can skip maybe to, there you go. Yep, thank you. So this is a building A, which is the apartment that fronts on Trolley Road. Just gives you a sense of these patios along the frontage on Trolley. And then we have 2 exits along the side drive aisles and then just 3 units per floor. Next slide, please. And then as the units go up, we wanted to have something that really addresses Trolley. We have these porches and balconies that extend out towards Trolley Road, which is on the top or kind of north part of the page there. Next slide, please. We're hiding all the mechanical units in this little hyphen sort of recessed area on the rooftop. Next slide. And then jumping back to building B, which is the townhome units. Pretty straightforward. We have parking inside these units and then one primary sort of entry canopy. You can see the man door there. We do have sidewalks that lead around the rear of these buildings as well. Next slide. These townhome units are set up to where the porch spaces are really meant to sort of help activate this internal kind of garden-like space, which is kind of the central core of the rear of the property where you saw that garden-like space and trellises. So all this looks out towards those areas, and we'll have some better pictures of that once we get to that point. Next slide. Then just residential, just bedrooms once you go up. Okay, if we can go, there you go. So just giving you some sense of how this might look in the context of Trolley once it's built. So this is approaching northbound. We can keep on going. That's a really good slide there that kind of shows the existing retail center and then the architecture of the proposed apartment building to the right. Next slide. A little bit closer view there. So we've got primarily stucco and brick accents. This brick's looking a little bit lighter than it actually is. That Magnolia Bay actually has a little bit more tan to it than white. We've got a sample in the back of the set. And then where you see these recesses, such as on the second floor around the windows, we're transitioning to more of a fiber cement material there. So trying to give some depth to the facades and some nice change in material as well. Next slide. This gives you a view southbound. And so our neighbor is the life storage, and you will see a little bit of the townhomes above that when you're coming down Trolley Road. Next slide. Just a little bit closer. You start to see it more on the right-hand side. Next slide. And then finally, you're kind of seeing the entry drive there with the common park space in the middle. Yeah, we can keep on going. There we go. Yep, next slide. Okay, so this is taking us back to the rear parking area. These are the townhomes that are kind of looking out towards that green space. Next slide. We can keep on going there. Okay, so this is at the back of the site looking towards the front. On the right-hand side, we have this grilling area with trellises and outdoor park swings. And a lot of these units are really made to kind of look down on that common space. Next slide. This is a bird's eye enlargement of the outdoor park. And so we wanted it to be large enough where it could actually be used. So we've got these sort of prep counter and grilling areas. We've got 2 grills. We have a tabby stucco knee wall that sort of holds all that grilling program with a brick cap. Those are relating to the same knee walls we were using on the front of the site. And then we have garapa wood trellises for these park swings. And you can imagine there's ability to have paths to sort of interconnect to other parts of the site as well. Next slide. Okay, we can keep on going and I'll wrap up here. That's just I'm sorry, if you can back up one view. There you go. That's a view I should have brought up earlier. Sort of showing that common amenity. Okay, next slide. So this is our materials palette. I won't dwell on it too much, but if there's any questions, we have a lot of specifications. Really, it's meant to be consistent with the previous architecture that we've done, even down to some of the accent lights. If there's any questions, we're happy to answer.
What are you doing for trash?
So to be honest with you, we don't have that figured out. If we go back to Tim, I'm gonna actually go backwards here, but if we can go to C100, which I think is somewhere around slide 5 or 6, we've got room to do a common enclosure there. See to the right, the very far right, the title block there. There's, and I could point it out to you here as well, but we would need to probably add an enclosure right there. There's already 2 on site, so there's only 11 residential units. There's not that much trash, but we probably think the best thing to do would be to tuck one on the back of that building or the back of that site there. And we do not have it depicted on the drawings at this time.
Did you say the same owner owns this entire length of the
Yeah,
block?
all 5 buildings. Yep.
Is it the same parcel?
No.
It's not the same parcel, but this particular, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but this particular one you're looking at is the parcel that wraps around that first commercial building on the right. That's 428, Charlie, that big block that you see on the right.
4 parcels.
Now he does. So my concern is he owns them now. But that may not be future. So one space per townhome unit, but they're 2 bedrooms, and you have 7 additional, but there's 11 units. So basically, it's not even parked 2 spaces per unit, correct?
You have 1 per unit, you have 11 parks, 11 units. That's what the code requires.
Yeah, I think we got.
I understand that, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm a single person that lives in the house and I have 3 cars by myself. I'm not saying that I would be the type of person to do that, but it is 2 bedrooms. It's not inconceivable.
He meets the ordinance.
I understand that.
And they have additional parking in the adjoining properties.
By easement or deed? Well,
They
that could
can
change.
They can do it through cross easement agreements.
So,
If I may,
Mhm.
it's not currently drafted, but I mean, it's proposed by the owner that they do have a shared parking agreement between
Okay.
his property and 428.
that helps me with that.
Just do cross easement parking. agreements.
Yeah, the shared, because I've seen that where shopping center, parking deck, 2 different parcels, same owner. Whoops, Bissell goes under. Both properties go up for auction, not the same owner. Parking deck owner wants more money, shopping center doesn't want to pay them because they don't have any parking spaces. Every unit in Ballantyne closed. So I was part of that deal. So I'm acutely aware of that, but that's fine. Plus I deal with townhomes in my community that I work in, and 2 spaces is not enough for us for townhomes. We're having issues with fire trucks and trash service. Second question I have is, that's a 40-foot tall 3-story unit. That's about 20 feet from a single family residence that's 1 story tall. Have y'all had conversations with that adjacent property owner? I mean, that's the scale there. You're talking about a 3-story tall building overlooking a backyard of a 1-story building.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to be sensitive to it. We do feel like because we switched to the residential use instead of the previous commercial use, that it might be a little bit better fit. Eric, I think that from a civil side, I think you guys actually planted a lot heavier buffer on the back than was normal. And then once you get into Quail Arbor, there's a pretty heavy row of pines. So I see exactly what you're saying, but we feel like that, given the use, it should be consistent with what you have in the neighborhood behind us. And it's allowable by the UDO. So we were trying to remain under the height that was allowed. And then on the low side, it slopes it down about 10 feet lower, so.
Justin,
And it's still gonna be the tallest building on Trolley.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the street view from the house behind it, and I can see very clearly looking through their front yard, the existing metal shed that's gonna be taken down. And that looks to be about the same area where the amenity area is. You go up 2 stories and you have these balconies looking down on these people's yards. Again, if it meets the rules, the ordinance and UDO, I'm just pointing it out that I'd be a little upset if there was no public hearing or no public ability to voice my opinion, that now I have 3 stories looking down in my backyard. I have no privacy anymore.
Well, there is an opportunity.
Sure.
Great points, but there is an opportunity.
Mhm.
This is it.
Yep.
This is the opportunity.
So that no rezoning or anything like that. This is by right.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is by right. Neighborhood mixed use. It's intended to be a mixed use district. We chose that for Trolley Road to try to keep the intensity of the uses a little bit lower. It does have a higher height limit because mixed use buildings typically would potentially have first floor retail, potentially 1 or 2 residential above. This is a unique and a transitional nature of what the hopefully may line Old Trolley as it redevelops. A lot of it's not in town still. So a lot of that older commercial isn't in town. We have very little control over existing development. They've been good with their landscaping on the other properties along the edges. I know that there was some concerns with the building next to Pointer Drive. I think most of the landscaping that was installed on that has satisfied the concerned residents that were directly behind. Different situation. I agree, they will be looking in that general direction. There are existing trees, and in time, hopefully that landscape buffer will fill in and provide additional screening and buffering for the existing residents going forward.
Like Chris said, things to think about.
Yep.
I'm actually an advocate of mixed use, so let me ask some questions. Justin mentioned a fire truck. So have you talked to the fire department about emergency vehicles on this one parcel? Or are they going to require you to use the adjacent parcel for access and exit?
Good question. I do believe RC 201. Go for it. Right. Yes, sir. So if Tim, if you don't mind going to page C201, we did have some preliminary coordination with fire. And one of the results of that conversation was showing an auto turn exhibit on 201 to show their maneuverability. Our drive aisles were, I think, slightly narrower beforehand, and we did widen the drive between the parking and building A that was widened to 24 per fire's comments. Preliminary comments, that is.
So this parcel is self-sufficient as far as emergency vehicles are concerned. Okay. I noticed a little faint note for the commercial strip center to be renovated.
It's already done.
That's the one that's done.
Oh,
already
so
been
what
renovated.
we see is the renovation? Or is there future plans and maybe a master plan to really
They've all
incorporate?
been renovated
Yeah,
in the past year.
that must be our error.
Okay.
It's already been done, yeah.
Yeah, that's an old note from their prior
Okay.
plan.
So, just considering the neighbors, TMS that ends in 004, that's a residence, right?
Sorry?
TMS, Amy and Sean Russell Byron, that's a residence, right?
Yes, there's a number of residences back there. Yep.
Okay, so the existing pine trees, that's on, looks like it's on your property. So is there a hardship for the buffer reduction?
We were trying to get the 24-foot drive aisle. I don't know if that qualifies as a hardship. That's just being open. We were trying to get 24-foot drive aisle to be able to service the back of the site. And the intent was really to not step down to a 10-foot buffer across the entire length of it, just for a small percent of it where we have the trellises, with the idea that we would supplement with additional landscape to try to create a nicer buffer there.
So they'll overlook this.
Can we see the landscape plan? Can we see the landscape plan?
Can you go to the L100, please? There. Okay, yeah,
Is that a two-story?
the one-story house.
Oh, this one's-
Now, well, so yeah, as Lossie was saying, the request for the buffer reduction was for the accommodation of the trellis as well as the 24-foot drive aisle to serve building B. There's also the detention basin in the western corner of the property. So a portion of that was encroaching into the 15-foot. So requesting to the 10 allowed for the larger detention as well.
Have you got a privacy fence there?
Yes, sir, there's an existing.
So you've got an existing privacy fence.
I think they need to fit the planting that's required in 15 feet in 10. Meaning if you've got to have 35 shrubs and 6 trees and whatever, put it all in 10.
That's easy.
Don't reduce the number of plants.
Yes.
You can only reduce the width.
Just the width.
And it appears that there's no taller trees that would screen. It looks like it's all shrubs, just from a quick review. So those need to be, there need to be some taller trees that would help break up the facade of the building.
And evergreen.
Don't you have
Evergreen.
some existing trees there?
Some on the upper, there's some, yeah.
Sure, yes, sir, there's more. The existing trees, the majority of them are at the trellis.
You don't have, yeah, I see them. I can just see them now.
There's a
you-
handful at the,
Have you got a demolition plan?
sir?
My contention is what's there now is worse than this for the neighbors.
Yes,
It's
sir.
a noisy, ugly business is there now. You're creating a quiet residential environment with what you're developing here. And it's a lot better than what's there.
Yes, sir. So the demolition plan is located on C100, Tim, if you don't mind. See that? So the majority of the trees that we are demoing, they're outside of the buffer. We're trying to leave as many.
So
buffers
that
as
metal
possible.
building is already within the buffer. Looks like there's an existing metal building.
Yes, sir. So that's being removed as well.
So I think I can get there, but you got to increase the height of the planting at planting. You know,
How the cover sheet shows an aerial that actually shows the landscape on the other side of the fence. I think it's just 1 or 2 pages back. Yeah, right there. That shows you just a little bit more.
You've got pretty heavy cover vegetation
But
there.
they're full of mature trees. And that's a 20-foot drainage easement back there too, on the residential side as well.
You know, those are planned for protection of the residents from the existing use of the property.
yeah, so it was always meant to be
So
commercial.
they're gonna be there.
It's always meant to be commercial.
It's always been commercial.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
why these people planted all those trees.
I can get behind it, but you got to increase the planting
Yeah.
pretty substantially.
What technique are you thinking about to give more privacy to the resident from the commercial on that one side?
Existing residents?
No, the new townhomes or the new apartments, building A and the commercial. It looks like you had bedrooms, windows right on the drive aisle.
That's a very good question. I think we would have, I don't know if we want to say the first 2 units on that end might be in close enough proximity to impact the neighbors potentially. We could try to reduce some windows on the end of the building, maybe. My perspective on it, which might not be right, but is that I think that the neighbors are always looking at each other here. It's not like we're doing a commercial building there or a restaurant. We're doing something that's in keeping with the context of the neighborhood. So we were trying to set it up where it wasn't that condition. And I think the trees would also provide screening because they're substantially tall pine trees there. I wish we would have provided a better image of that. But we're happy
mean,
to
the-
address it if we need to.
I'm just talking about the drive aisle between the commercial building. Exactly, right there.
I'm sorry, I totally missed the boat on that one.
Right.
Say that one more time.
So where Tim is playing with the cursor.
Yeah, I think I got you now. Okay.
What are some techniques to give more privacy to the apartments versus the commercial drive aisle and whatever happens in the commercial? You have bedroom windows. So I'm just saying, I'm sure you're gonna do something. It should be shown on the design.
Yeah, so we have proposed windows in that side elevation. That's a good point. We could perhaps do some shutters that would mute some of the view. Our thought was that someone that would be interested in these units might be used to sort of an urban infill type lifestyle. I mean, that's,
Rossi, I think we would like you just to consider adding some Bermuda shutters or some other kind of
Okay.
privacy screen.
That would create what you need.
Mhm.
And give every tenant free
Fair enough.
curtains.
And it is still lets some light. come in,
Sure,
'cause
sure.
They're gonna want the light.
All right, any further questions, discussions?
I mean, I agree that it's better than what's there from a commercial standpoint, but you also have to understand the commercial aspect is 9 to 5. I get off work, I go to my backyard and I can see at least 2, if not all 3 stories of those balconies looking into my backyard and I have no privacy. I'm going to be pretty bent out of shape about it. Regardless of what was behind there, because at least when I get off work, I don't have to hear a mechanic shop because they're closed. But if somebody has a party and they're overlooking their balcony and I'm in my backyard, I just get nervous about it. I just wish there was a mechanism for us to be able to talk, or at least y'all to be able to talk to the adjacent property owner. And I'd also really like to make sure that there's some sort of cross parking agreement in place. Because 11 parking spaces for 11 units and their 2 bedrooms is not going to fly.
All the other points, I think the cross parking, all that stuff can be worked out with staff. Required probably from staff. So any further discussion?
I just want to say, I think it's a refreshing change there. It's a movement that we're going to see in lots of places. And it's just what people do. They want to live close to where they're working and they want it to be convenient. And the people that live there are going to know what's beside them and they're going to choose to live there or not live there. And it's going to be fine. And the architecture is really very beautiful on it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I think if we're actually looking for final approval, little details like, the electrical panels, I think you need to screen those. Right now, I think they're just exposed. I think you do need to figure out the trash. I understand, since it's the same owner, the desire to fit the residential with the architecture of the commercial, but I think there may be benefits to making it a little more unique. And I don't know what that solution is. Right off the top of my head, the roof line is very dramatic, which is good. I think the roof line kind of defines architecturally this whole development, which is good. Whether it's simple brackets on the residential part and no brackets on the commercial. I think there's a way of, again, softening the architecture so that it is more residential feel versus just moving into a commercial building. And then, exterior accent lights, I'm always big on, sconces and things like that. That would need to be shown and added.
Yeah, we've got
Okay.
all the cut sheets with those currently. So
I think the materials look good.
I think it's a great project. What makes me uneasy is you went straight to final. I don't like that. I don't think I don't think that was the right approach.
I agree. I'm like,
A lot to take in.
it is a lot to look at in one evening and take that in. And although I do agree, it is a great addition to what's there. Just because it looks better than what's there, doesn't mean it's at the right point that it needs to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was our mistake, so.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. We'd like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to give preliminary approval, and we look forward to seeing you the next time. If we can vote that way.
Sure. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Peter,
You heard the comments, right?
any further discussion? Okay,
And especially on the reduction of the buffer, you understand that?
I do.
all right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Tim, any other business?
No, just wanted to say, thank you all for attending the training that we did before. I still need to work on the certificates to come out for those. And I will send the link to the video to those who weren't able to attend. We had some good feedback from those who did attend, so do with it as you will. Other than that, thank you all.
All right, I think I saw Bill make a motion for disbanding or what, dismissal. Hart made the second.
Second.
Let's go.
Hey Tim, is there any opportunity, John, to give that presentation, to do another presentation on the second